hopped up sickle that took off like a gun. That fool was the terror of Highway 101.
Hey, this is Danny on KRUZ Radio in the After Midnight Ramble, posted on Two-Bit Tales. Not many people have ever had a song written about them, and fewer folks have had a song written about their wild ride on an old chopped Harley and their meeting with a train in the dark of night. I'm one of those very few. It was a long time ago, and it was just like the song said. Almost. I did wear black denim trousers, motorcycle boots, and a black leather jacket that had an eagle on the back. I also had a hopped-up sickle that took off like a gun. I liked that part of the song. And I was indeed the terror of Highway 101. The song mentioned my girlfriend, Mary Lou. I called her my old lady, and said that I treated her just like I treated all the rest. Then it went on about how she pleaded and begged me not to leave, and that she had a feeling if I were to ride that night she would grieve. I seem to remember her saying something quite different. The song also told about how her tears were shed in vain, and her every word was lost in the rumble of my engine and the smoke from my exhaust. Then it went on about my taking off like a demon with fire in my eyes. Nothing unusual there. And saying that I'd ride 1,000 miles before the sun would rise. Pretty much true so far. But then it goes on to say that I hit a steaming diesel that was California bound, and that when they cleared the wreckage, all they found was my pants, boots, and jacket. Obviously something was missing. The song then goes on to say that they never found the bike that took off like a gun, or the terror of Highway 101, yours truly. Well, I can clear that mystery up real quick, like I never hit no train. I can only imagine how many people have wondered what happened to that bike and its rider, me, over the years since that song was so popular. Maybe only a few, maybe a lot, who knows. What I do know is that I wondered about it when I first heard that song on the radio a couple of years after I had left Mary Lou standing in my dust on that night. At first I thought the song to be a coincidence. Then I got to thinking about her guitar-playing kid brother, always making up little ditties about me and Mary Lou and my bike. When I found out the name of the songwriter, I had to laugh at the unexpected turn of events from my ride that night. I was really fed up with my dead-end life and my troubled relationship with Mary Lou. She always drank and nagged me, and I always drank and tried to ignore her. The scene, often as not, ended with me roaring off on my bike and turning into the terror of Highway 101. I'd leave with the rumble of my engine and the smoke from my exhaust, with the rods knocking, pistons slapping, and every bolt chattering like death itself. My takeoff on that particular night was no exception. I started up that 38 old Thunder machine. It usually fired on the 7th or 11th kick. And just lucky, I guess. Screwed the throttle a full 1/4 turn, wide open. And somewhere around 4,000 to 6,000 RPMs, whichever came first, slipped my foot off the suicide clutch, and that old knucklehead would do amazing things in the dirt driveway with his rear tire. The degree of sensationalism of my exit performance usually depended on a number of factors. How much I had to drink, and how verbal Mary Lou had been during the course of the evening, how many kicks it took to start my thrashing machine, and whether or not I remember to put it in gear. If the bike was in gear, all hell would break loose on the front yard, in the pasture. Hopefully I would go through the holes in the fence that I had made on other occasions, and sometimes on the porch itself, where the swinging love seat used to hang. Until I dragged it 5 miles down the road when it hooked itself onto my sissy bar. On that particular night, before I supposedly ran into the train, my takeoff was spectacular, and Mary Lou's 15-year-old kid brother was enjoying the hell out of my performance. He always did get a kick out of my evening exit displays. Actually, I think I often went to excess on my exits just to please him. Later, we often laughed about how I went through the bushes or the flower bed, and how one time I got stuck in the mud by the frog pond in the pasture. Well, to make a long story short, I was angry and fed up with my nowhere life. I had reached max with Mary Lou. My bike was on its last spoke, and I felt that I was overdue for a change. Anyway, the kid was grinning from ear to ear, perched on what was left of the porch rail, strumming away on his guitar with the front door open, just in case I rode up the steps and into the house with a punched-out, stroked engine between my legs. And just before I dumped the clutch, I made the comment that I would ride 1,000 miles before sunrise, indicating that I wouldn't be back. I made a straight shot out of the driveway and reached the pavement of the highway all in first gear. Once on the main road, I wound it up to what I call pre-blow-up before jamming the shift lever on the side of the tank into the next gear. I remember my ride that night very well. It stands out in my mind after all these years. I remember the wind at high speed, the way my jacket pushed into my chest, only to balloon out at the shoulders when I moved my arms to funnel the air up my sleeves. The way my cheeks puffed out and fluttered if I relaxed my lips the least bit. The way my foot blew off the foot peg or my hand off the throttle if I started to doze. And when I started to doze, I would slow down and stop, walk around to wake up, put in another quart of oil and check both tanks to guess how far I could go before having to find a gas station. And sometimes I would eat a can of beans that I had wired to the exhaust pipe 100 miles back. Had to plan ahead if one were to have a hot meal on the road. I remember stopping to wait for a slow freight train, shutting off my engine and sitting back against the sissy bar with my feet up on the tank. It would be a long wait for a long train. As I tried to figure out what I was going to do with my life and the pain I felt inside, I must have dozed off for just a few seconds. The next thing I knew, another rider had pulled up alongside me on a brand new panhead, all shiny and bright with that new Hydroglide front end. It even had a front brake. I had to blink my eyes a few times to clear my vision. Must have been the smoke from the train engine settling around us, because I found the rider and his shiny new bike kind of hard to focus on at first, like he kind of faded in and out for a few seconds. I remember walking around and around that bike saying, wow. All I could say was, wow. It was so beautiful, so clean. There wasn't a scratch on it. Not a drop of oil, a spot of grease, or even a bug on the windshield. The owner just sat there grinning, not saying a word. I know that's what I would do if it were mine. I would just grin and eat it all up. Finally, I stopped saying wow and said, man, I'd ride from here to L.A. in my jockey shorts for a bike like that. The other rider finally spoke, saying, you don't mean that. You really wouldn't do that, and you know it. He just didn't know who he was talking to. I'm serious, man. I'd do it naked, I really would, I said. He said, hey, if you ride this bike to L.A. in your shorts, I'll give it to you. Man, I'm sure glad it's summer, I said, as I began taking my boots, pants, and jacket off, throwing them on the ground by the tracks. I didn't expect him to actually give me the bike, but I wasn't about to pass up an opportunity to ride it. I could always come back after a bit and get my duds. I don't know when the train finished going by, but it was gone by the time we were ready to ride, me on that new machine in my briefs, and he on my old rat scooter, clanking and snorting smoke, oil, and dropping occasional loose nut or bolt on the road. We rode some miles together before we saw a couple of girls on the side of the road hitching under a street lamp. We stopped and offered them a ride, and I guess they felt we were okay, judging from the way we were both grinning. And they must have been on their way to the beach, as they were both wearing what looked like swimsuits. The one in the blue briefs got on behind me. I told her that I could almost swear she was in her skivvies. She smiled and said something about a fantasy of hers coming true. And because the new bike didn't have a sissy bar, she wrapped her arms around me and held on. Wow, I'd never put any kind of backrest on this machine if it were mine, I thought. They said their car had broken down by the railroad tracks a short ways back. I didn't remember seeing it back there, although there was a bunch of broken glass and pieces of what could have been a car at one time by the tracks. And we took off, and the guy on my old thumper pulled away from us with ease, his passenger smiling and her hair blowing in the wind. I held my breath so as to not choke from the smoke, and was surprised to see that there was no smoke. The old steed seemed to be running better than ever. Sounded smoother too. Weird. But I sure loved that new cruiser. The windshield didn't have a bug on it. Some miles later, my friend dropped back alongside and yelled, "We've got some folks to meet at another crossing. Enjoy your new ride." And with that, they roared off onto an intersecting highway and faded into the night. The old engine never sounded better. And feeling a squeeze of arms around me and a softness against my back, I said out loud as we rode off into the pre-dawn light of a beautiful new day, "Wow, man, wow. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy." Doc Starkey. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.